Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bear Bar Tales. It is I, the one bear that one day dreams of being my group's nuke damage dealer, and finally being one of the cool kids, the Bear Bard. Today we have a special exclusive. Our story was actually posted in my Discord, so no Reddit link today. If you haven't had the chance to join my Discord, make sure to check out the link below. We have some really cool people in there and a really fun little community going. Our story today was submitted by Discord user XenoQueen800, which is terrifying as it implies at least 799 other Xenoqueens, and covers a rando who joined their online 5e game. Now in the past, listening to some other creators' videos I've been in, you may have heard us making jokes about Catgirl PCs and their various noises. Well, this player, and others like them, is where those come from. So I hope you're ready for a grown man to say, "Nya." Also, I do apologize for you having to hear me say that even once, but it's gonna be so much worse. Now, before we get started, if you like this kind of content and you want to hear more from the Bear Bard, make sure to like this video and give that sub button some love. Every sub I get, oh, hey, it's a Mossy. Wait, what do you mean forget the sponsorship? Oh, snap. Is that why somebody left this Apotheosis book by my tent along with this mildly threatening letter saying I'll be doxxed if we don't talk about it?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that means... Have you ever felt that you enjoy your current system, but wish combat was a little more engaging? Do you start playing on your phone or surfing the web as soon as your GM says, roll for initiative? Apotheosis is a brand new TTRPG that last year went on Kickstarter and completely surpassed its initial goal within 48 hours. This is because it has a completely new, unique, and dynamic combat system. Apotheosis is a traditional high fantasy setting with a ton of customability that allows you to make any world you want. The core book comes with 11 races, some of which are completely unique to Apotheosis, and one of those races, the Antharan, have numerous options of just their own. One of the coolest things about this system, in my opinion, is that they do away with the idea of traditional classes and instead give you a large list of spells and abilities to choose from. Would it be an ice-wielding rogue, a shield-wielding mage, or even a nuke of a bard? All of that is possible in Apotheosis. There are over 500,000 unique builds you can make, which is honestly just insane. I know, I was getting there. You can't just interrupt me like that. As he was saying, the combat is truly what separates Apotheosis from its contemporaries. The first thing to note in Apotheosis is the use of environment on the combat. Want to set an ambush for a patrolling enemy? Maybe you perch up in a tree and get the literal drop on them. Well, in Apotheosis, you can use that bonus momentum gained for a devastating effect. But you need to weigh that option against the possibility of taking some fall damage. Another aspect of combat that sets Apotheosis apart is the ability to synergize between players. Have two casters, combine wind and fire for a burning cyclone. Or maybe you can transmute the ground at an enemy's feet for the charging barbarian type to have an easier time. Overall, this risk-reward system can lead to interesting and dynamic combat, really making both player and GM think about what's around them, as opposed to just, here I am, and there's the bad guy. If you're interested in testing out the system before committing, they actually just released a new demo for the game that gives you a real feel for what you're getting into. This demo has everything you need to test out the system without spending a dime. If you're wanting to look more into Apotheosis, I would check out the various social medias, the QR codes of which you can find on the screen. The one I really want to draw attention to is the Discord. I actually personally joined and they got a really cool thing going. You can interact with the game makers and help guide the future of the game, while also getting clarification and hopefully finding people to play with. And the coolest part? I'm in the game. You can send the message Bear Bard to them on any of their social medias and they'll send you a PDF with the stat line. So make sure to pick that up and add me to your game. And with that, let's get to today's story, titled The Catgirl Man Who Ruined Everything. A while ago, my boyfriend started running his first D&D 5e game on Discord. He had a lot of fun with the world building and would update me on shenanigans most days after work. After a few months, a couple of the players had to drop. He said he already arranged for another player to join but was having trouble filling the last gap and asked me to replace the bard that had to leave. I wheeled out my favorite PC, a changeling swords bard / swashbuckler rogue. Not a stereotypical horny bard, but fully aware of how looks are handy distraction to steal all the things. The party were mid-dungeon the session I joined, so my bard stumbled into their temporary camp a tad tipsy after someone failed to teleport her out of a party and she ended up in the desert. The other new player was late, so I was introduced to an elven rogue, half-elf druid, Aasimar cleric, and tiefling monk. We did well. Made our way through the dungeon to an Arcanist shop and fought a large construct. I took enough damage to be outed as a changeling earlier than I would have preferred, but it was fun, and I was meshing well with the existing party. It was at this point shit hit the fan. We leave the dungeon out into the desert heat. The DM asks the final new player to join the voice chat, and before a word of greeting, the first thing we hear is a poor imitation of an anime schoolgirl, an ear-piercing "Nya" across the dunes. Sounded like that classic crack kid vine. Enter Wizard, the problem player in this scenario. They proceeded to describe a small child wearing purple all over, with cat ears, a tail, a witch hat with a large spellbook. Completely thrown, the group tries to stay in character with stuff like, "Whose kid is this?" and "Where's your mommy, little one?" and stuff like that, only to get tantrums like, "UwU, I only look 12, but I'm actually in my 30s, nya." I'm so sorry that all of you had to just hear me say that, but again, it gets worse. Hard nope on that one, the group proceeds back to the nearest city. A strange cat child tagging along, and none of us were sure WTF to do with it. They nearly completely blow our cover with their random "Nya" screams down the voice chat that nearly attracts several enemies in-game, including the BBEG's Death Knight Thrall that was wandering the desert looking for the level 6 party. We report to an orc in town who sends us off on a quest into a jungle to see their patron. The tribe's land is protected by a phoenix that roosts in the giant trees, and it's been acting strange lately. The standard "please fix, we'll give you gold" sort of quests. So, off we go. The wizard is all the while being oddly clingy to Druid. They start calling him Daddy in and out of character, snuggling up to him, asking to be carried, etc. The Druid's player is clearly not comfortable with this, but he wasn't that outspoken in the group yet and just sort of ignored it. We get to the giant tree where the phoenix is nesting. Initial scouting shows that there's definitely something weird about it. Its flames are darker and it leaves a dark, smoky trail as it flies. The cleric guessed it's either cursed or being influenced by something, and the DM confirms his suspicions. We climb the tree and clearly see that some sort of curse mask is on its face as it sleeps. Attempts to pry it off fail and everyone rolls initiative. We pretty much get absolutely destroyed. Small area on a branch against something with a fly speed and large ranged attacks. Nya seems to be the only thing Wizard can say at this point. They take twice as long as everyone else per turn despite claiming to be an experienced player. Druid offers to help them out if they share a link to their character sheet, and we find that a level 6 wizard only prepped 4 spells: Burning Hands, Prestidigitation, Minor Illusion, and Detect Magic. We ask them why, and they say, "They look pretty and glittery, so that's why I picked them. Nya." Okay, whatever. We manage to take down the phoenix, which turns into an egg. We take the egg and the cursed mask back to the orcs who threw us a huge feast in their meat hall. When asked what RP we want to do, the monk and rogue get wasted and go looking for shenanigans. My bard drinks sensibly and cons some orcs out a coin, and the sheltered noble druid decides to head to bed. Upon hearing this, when prompted, the wizard just says, "UwU, in that case, I'll be in bed with Daddy. Nya," and describes how their underage-looking character rubs up against him. Nope, niet, nine, nay, no, oh hell nah. Why are people like this? Cool, at least you made your character in the 30s, but if you go out of your way to have them act like a freaking child, and then have them be sexual in any way, shape, or form, please just go turn yourself into the nearest police station and stay away from people. Completely unprompted and with no consent or prior conversation with the Druid's player, it was a total record scratch WTF moment for the whole party before Wizard's player finally reads the room and lets out a cacophony of shrill, embarrassed "Nya" down their mic. I still don't know what that was. We had to put them on half volume and still yell over the cringe to explain to them that that sort of content is okay in the game, but just wait until you A, actually know the other players for more than, 3 sessions, and B, you ask the other player's permission out of game before you go saying stuff like that. We hear a disconnect noise as the wizard dips out of VC, and we end the session there. Next session, we're woken after the feast to our rooms being infiltrated by cultists sent by the BBEG. Turns out those "Nya" sounds the Death Knight heard weren't some strange indigenous bird being strangled and he'd sent his goons to try and finish us off as we slept. Roll initiative. I run in to help tackle the cultist off Druid. Monk pursues another that jumped out of a window to street level. Rogue gets to the roof after a third. DM, Wizard, what do you do? Wizard, yeah. DM, do you attack or move to a room with a cultist? Wizard, yeah, I hide under the bed. So they do. They hide under the bed for the entire fight. The scared kitty doubles down on the "UwU, help me, daddy" cringe talk while the rest of us are in combat and then proceeds to do nothing for the rest of the session. They hide under the bed while we follow the cultists to their ship. They hide under the bed while we sink their ship and interrogate their surviving cultists. They hide under the bed right up until we return to our rooms for a long rest, at which point the "UwU, daddy" talk starts right up again. None of us are having it, and we're all pissed at them for not even leaving the rooms to help with what ended up being a tough fight. The DM threw in some homebrew aberrations that nearly downed half the party, and we needed all the help we can get. Everyone goes off on the wizard player, especially the druid, about how that kind of talk combined with how their character presented herself was cringe and creepy, and kind of unsettling to a group of strangers who had made it clear they weren't into that shit. As politely as he could, DM told the player that if they couldn't cut that shit out, they wouldn't be welcome back next session. We leave the session there, and that's where the cringe shifts to IRL. Over the course of the next week, in between sessions, the wizard player fills the art channel of the Discord server with art of their purple-clad tabaxi wizards surrounded by speech bubbles with danger signs in them, with their mouth either covered or sewn shut. Cleric's player calls my attention to it after work one day, and we talked about how obvious it was they were trying to show their character being forcibly censored against their will. They weren't happy with us asking them to stop with the UwU talk in-game, and they chose to respond to the polite request with poor attempts at metaphors in MS Paint art format. What happens when the artist gets passive-aggressive, yeah? Look, I know this is actually a fairly common argument in cases like this, but here's the thing. You talk to your group and get something like this okayed ahead of time, and it's all good. Here, the player just hit them with the character, which, as a late addition, I'll even forgive. But then, when asked to change, as it made everyone else uncomfortable, they doubled down. Here, it's not censorship, it's the player acting like a damn fool when their garbage character wasn't received well at a table. As a bear very much against censorship in any form, I gotta say, they need to get over themselves. Everyone gets into chat early next session as we ask the wizard what's up with the art. At this, Wizard's player starts to get emotional at being called out. I don't think they were expecting the rest of us to understand their art's deep symbolism. As they got more and more emotional, the UwU Japanese schoolgirl voice they used in and out of character started to break into a gruff, deeper one that sounded like a chain-smoking 40-something truck driver. He got really annoyed and made it clear that if we'd have just let him ERP with Druid, he wouldn't have had to call us out with poorly drawn edgy doodles. He stormed out of the VC and never came back. After explaining the situation to the server mods, the player was booted. Tried to come back once or twice under different usernames, but it reached the point eventually where they were booted one by one from every active game on the server and never tried to come back. Next session, we ruled that the strange cat child stayed under the bed and suffocated, as one does. Over a year later and the game's going great. Heading towards the end game of this story and the stakes are getting high. My bard naturally formed an in-game relationship with Druid. No UwU daddy talk required, and everyone's having fun. Occasionally, the DM throws a "Nya" in the dark of night to scare the crap out of us. TLDR, older man joins a game playing an underage lolly neko wizard and latches onto male character to try to force ERP and get his character a boyfriend. Within 3 sessions of meeting any of us. Actively does nothing in-game apart from hide during combat and exclusively scream "Nya" down the mic at the top of their lungs instead of role-playing. Gets all edgy with art when we try to silence their character and rage quits because none of us are getting into 12-year-old Catgirls. Sorry that was so long by the way, but I needed to share it with someone. The cringe memories resurfaced after listening to all the horror stories on the Bear Bard's channel today. Aww. So, one thing, I'd like to play that last part out for you as I imagine it happening. What? What do you mean about my art? Do you even understand the deep symbolism and anguish poured into them, UwU? Can you even fathom the depths of my soul laid bare there? If you'd have just let me fuck that sexy ass daddy over there, this could have all been avoided. I hope you're happy with yourselves. That may have been the most cursed thing to ever happen. I mean, as a grown man, what in your life leads you to this? I mean, do some people like to play kid characters? Sure, it's not my thing, but you do you. But you gotta know first when to draw the line with character versus player, and second to talk to your group and make sure they're comfortable with what you're playing, especially when you're adding ERP into the mix. I mean, this, again, grown man really spent multiple sessions both in and out of character talking like a 13-year-old UwU girl. I mean, I hate myself for even saying that in this video. I couldn't imagine exclusively talking like that for multiple sessions in a group where everyone hates it. I know I always say it, but there's a table for everyone. Somewhere out there is a table that would love to have this guy. He just has to do the work and find them, and that takes a healthy dose of communication. The one thing I do need to point out with the DM is that after the first session with this guy, he probably should have stepped in and talked to him. Now, sometimes with these stories, there's instances where the DM did actually try talking to them, it just doesn't make it into the story. You know, not every detail does. But with situations like this, you really need to bring it up as soon as you can, instead of letting it build up and explode. I could go on a whole tangent about the idea of making a 30-year-old sexualized character that looks and acts like a kid, but honestly, I think most people watching this know how wrong it is, and if you don't, spend a few minutes thinking about it. But for now, let's get a bit more wholesome and get to our bear facts of the week. The Syrian brown bear is a relatively small subspecies of brown bear native to the Middle East and the Caucasus mountain range. That being said, most of the population is active in Iraq, Iran, Turkey, and Turkmenistan. The bear is actually considered extinct in its namesake Syria, as well as Israel. The Syrian brown bear's fur is usually very light brown and straw-colored. What's interesting is the higher the elevation, the lighter the color. Wojtek was a Syrian brown bear purchased by Polish soldiers in Iran during World War II. Wojtek became the company mascot, initially given the rank of private in order to justify its presence in the military camp. He was subsequently promoted to corporal and assisted the soldiers in loading artillery. After the war, Wojtek retired to the Edinburgh Zoo, where he became a popular and beloved attraction. His military service is memorialized in both Scotland and Poland. If you're curious why he was in Scotland, not Poland, most of Poland was pretty bad after the war. We also have a submission to the Bear Bard's Cave of Art and Wonders. Today's submission comes from Discord user Maya and depicts a glam rock bear bard. I can truly feel the Van Halen, Def Leppard, and Poison dripping from this image. Every horror story has its UwU. Look, I'm not even going to apologize for this episode anymore. I already gave you guys the warning. I want to thank Apotheosis again for sponsoring this episode. I really do encourage you to at least check out their demo. Also make sure to get your Bear Bard stat line by messaging them Bear Bard to any of their social medias. I'll also have a character sheet filled out with my nuke of a Bearfolk Bard that you'll be able to find in my own Discord. I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. If you like this episode, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you want more from the Bear Bard, you can find me on Discord, Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. I also have a podcast if you're into that sort of thing. For now though, this has been the Bear Bard. Stay kind, stay beautiful, and keep on living that bard life.